Whether you're studying languages by attending a class in person, or maybe following a course online, or even just working away by yourself at home, you're going to want to acquire extra resources, maybe more than what's available for free download online or for listening. It can prove to be quite expensive, so it's good to know beforehand what the ins and outs are of a particular text, book, or set of discs or sound files. Today, I'm going to be talking about one that I acquired some time ago, but that exists in other editions also, which is Teach Yourself Irish. You can see it boasts over 40 million sold. There's probably many more since then. The edition that I have is the one with the boats on the cover, quite a theme with Irish books. But later editions have a harp and so on. It's substantially the same book inside, I think, looking at the chapter divides. But I'm going to review this older edition anyway, because very frequently people pick up older editions of textbooks through second-hand shops and so on. That can be a much more budget-friendly way of finding good resources. So bear in mind that any errors I mention are probably corrected, or hopefully corrected since then. It's by Diarmaid O'Shea and Joseph Shales. So it came in a package with a book and 2 CDs, which were quite difficult actually to get out of the packaging, worth bearing in mind. And the packaging broke, and it's not just because I've had it a while. It actually has been broken since quite early on and has a sharp edge. So that's a practical side of things to look out for if you're obtaining this resource. Things I found it useful for. It has a fantastic section at the beginning explaining pronunciation. And although it does use English transcription of how you make certain sounds, and elsewhere I've said that can be a problem depending on your accent in English, it's actually quite helpful for understanding why Irish is spelt the way it is and what initial mutations are and that sort of thing. That's in the very beginning of the book before the actual lessons. The lessons are divided by theme. So the first chapter is Misha, my name is, and all the work in that chapter will be around that topic. They're very basic and sometimes strange ones, like a will to posta, are you married? I'm not quite sure why that happened so early in the book, but anyway, this was the 90s. You'll begin each chapter with a dialogue, which is on the accompanying disc, and then learn the vocabulary explained in English that's in that dialogue. And then there'll be questions, very simple questions, and kind of grammar explanations, language notes that go with it. So it's a good complement to something like Buntas Caintear, which I've reviewed earlier, which is primarily oral, has a book to go with it, but doesn't explain the grammar. You learn the grammar by doing. This one more frequently explains the grammar in each chapter, kind of bite-size. So it would be good to use as a complement to something else that doesn't explain the grammar. However, it doesn't go very deep into it, and I understand that there is also a Teach Yourself Grammar book by a different author, which you could acquire to use in working with the Teach Yourself text, whichever edition you were using. I should note here too that in the 60s there was a very much older and different Teach Yourself Irish book, which is available free online, but it's not the same content nor the same authors, and I haven't tried that one. There are also little pieces of realia or real life samples of material in there that you can listen to and pick to pieces, such as radio announcements and so on, that are quite good to work with. They're not spoken too fast, they're quite clear on the discs. I do find, as I say, the discs hard to get out though, and that can lead to some problems. You don't want a snapped disc. Likewise, the book itself being so thick can be quite hard to open. You can't easily lay it flat. But it isn't all just listening to the radio and saying your name and whether you're married or not. We also have introductions to houses being welcomed, and inevitably Toshe Gobrior Inuv, talking about the weather. It is fine today. Ken Tome, what time is it? These are all the different chapters. Or then we get to the past tense. Ceart arinne tú. Ceart arinne tú. Niakame hu le tamal. Haven't seen you for a while. And so on. So they're taught quite naturally, the different tenses and the different ways of expressing things. And it's also visually quite well laid out. So you have a lot of cartoon form, postcard form, things that are reasonably entertaining to the eye that gives relief from text if that matters to you. A lot of the time, these kinds of responses to books are quite personal. I like to be able to lay a book flat. I like something that isn't too heavily textual so that I don't feel a huge block of information is coming at me all at once. So I think layout's really important in a textbook, something that welcomes you in and that feels approachable. In that regard, it's quite a good little book. One of the things I do find difficult about it is when I'm trying to find something through the back and it refers me to the section, it's got numbered sections, I can never actually find it because the way the sections are laid out is not easy for me. That may be more about me than about the book, but it's just worth noting. There are errors in the book. They tend to be on the trivial side, such as a fada being placed over the wrong letter, so an accent that lengthens the vowel being over the wrong letter in certain places, which doesn't matter if you know the word already, but could lead you astray if you don't. Hopefully that's been corrected in later editions. And also just occasionally, for instance, in a comprehension on page 53, where they've got an ag instead of an r. So beme agash instead of arash, agashi. I'll be back at 6. Which I've kind of scribbled on to remind myself not to say the wrong thing, but these are not very frequent. It's largely very good text and easy to follow. It uses the official standard rather than any one dialect, so that may be a useful thing for you to know as well. I think that used alone, it probably isn't enough. I mean, it's called Teach Yourself, so one would hope that with it and the sound files, or it and the CDs in this case, that would be sufficient, but it actually wouldn't be. You'd need at least the grammar as well, and I'd heavily recommend using it alongside something like Buntes Kancher, which gives you repetitive drilling, and also with a host of other resources. So as an extra, great. As a standalone, maybe just not quite adequate, but it's still a very good item to have in your collection. What I've gone back to it for again and again and still find really good is the pronunciation guide that, as I say, is at the beginning of the book. Check it out. That alone made it worth my having this textbook. If you've used Teach Yourself Irish in this edition or another, maybe the more recent one with the harp on the cover, please let me know what you thought of it and whether you use it alongside others or have relied mostly on this resource. And for more discussion of Irish language and other languages and the learning process, please subscribe to Language Learning Life.